There it is. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. And thank you for coming out on such a hot night. We were hoping it would rain earlier to cool everything off. So, okay, sorry. Welcome. And thank you for coming this evening, even on this hot weather day. Wish it was cooler in here for all of you. So thank you for coming. And we're going to kick off the meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so the first, can you hear me? Gary, can you hear me when I stand over here? Can you hear me? Okay, because if you can't, go, no, I can't hear you. All right, you can hear me better now. All right, so, oh yeah, now you can really hear me, right? Okay, so the first thing we need to do is nominate a moderator. So do I have somebody that people would like to nominate? Yes. Okay, second. So we have a nomination, a second of Randall Greenwood. Any other? We had a second, yes. I think the second was it you, Gary?
It was Gary.
Yeah, Gary Parker. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll close the nominations. We need 3 people to go up to vote for Randy, and then he will be taking over. I see 3. Thank you. And anyone else? That's right. We don't want to discourage if people want to go up. The ballot box is closed. Okay, so Randy has been elected, and now we're going to swear him in. I, Randall Greenwood, do swear that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my ability the duties incumbent on me as moderator of this annual budget meeting according to the Constitution and laws of the state, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that of this state, so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So help me God. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you for that vote of support there. Could I get the 3 ballot clerks to come down to be sworn in? Can I get you to each write your name. I got a pen. I got more pens. Okay. I will have you all three raise your hands, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. All right. I state your name. Do swear that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my ability the duties incumbent on me as clerk of the annual budget meeting according to the Constitution and laws of the state, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. So help me God. All right. I'll sign it. All right. Just wanted to take a moment to let everybody know the rules that we'll be following for this budget meeting will be the rules from the main moderator's manual as applicable and as applicable with provisions of laws using the main moderator's manual guide to town meeting, the 7th edition, 2021. Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. I don't have a gavel, but that's okay. All right, at this time, I'm going to introduce the superintendent because by law, she gets an opportunity to explain the budget.
Mr. Moderator, may I ask for a motion to be considered for non-voting administrators, Katie Grondin, Samantha Garnett, Siasis, Jonathan Varney, Norma Jean Ardette, Marco Aliberti, Amy St. Pierre, Brian Daniels, Dustin Miles, along with Jim Palmer, be able to speak at this meeting.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to allow those listed non-citizens the opportunity to speak. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Excuse me? All right. I cannot hear your objection. Can you come to the podium?
My name is Gary Parker, and I would request a definition of who those people are that are being allowed to speak at this meeting outside of residents of the three towns.
All right.
Who are they?
So I guess I will defer that question because we're still on a motion.
Yep.
And if you could read those names and identify the position.
So Katie Grondin is our superintendent of schools. Steal your paper again.
Can we get some more audio, some more volume on that mic?
You have to put it right on.
Okay, so Katie Grondin is our superintendent of schools. Samantha Garnett Siasis is our business manager. Jonathan Varney is our director of operations and transportation. Norma Jean is our director of technology. Marco Aliberti is our high school principal. Amy St. Pierre is our middle school principal. Brian Daniels is our athletic director. Dustin Miles is our principal over at Libby Tozier and at Carrie Ricker. And then Jim Palmer is our adult education.
Thank you. It's very nice to know that all these people are from other towns.
Is your objection been answered? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that has been moved and seconded to allow those non-citizens to speak. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed, that motion carries.
Okay, so if you came to the last meeting, I just do a quick overview before we jump into the different articles. So I just want to recap the what were the drivers in this budget, and I want to start by commenting that since the last referendum vote, the school board has been working hard to bring that budget down to help lower the impact on your property taxes. So I hope you can hear that as we go through. One of the big drivers obviously is our staff. We have approximately 225 staff members that are working hard to educate the children of RSU4. In here, the budget, there was one new position for bus drivers, so we will be having 12 bus drivers and 10 runs. That allows flexibility for when drivers are out, that we don't have to close bus runs. We also had two positions that were COVID funded. The Oak Hill Middle School assistant principal and an elementary IT position. So the cost of the salary and the benefits increase, well, the salary increases was $323,399. For health benefits, we had a 12% increase, and so we're always working with the MEA Trust to talk about how do we bring our health insurance more in line and not have such increases every year. So we had a 12% that equated to $505,017. Then we have students that we place in special education out of district, and those decisions are made through an individual education program, team meetings where staff and families work together on what is the best placement for what students need. And so we budget for 19 placements. We are directed by the state to increase those by 6%. So when we look at the costs, we bump that 6%. And it also impacts those services students receive at those placements beyond their education, but like OT, PT, speech, so that's occupational therapy, physical therapy. And so that was an increase of $335,422. And then in our maintenance, so non-salary items, increase like purchase services, inspections, security, water testing, so building insurances, pest control. So those account for $167,174. Then special education transportation, we contract with Gordon's, and they do special ed transportation at $163,658 was an increase. And then the board has adjusted, so they at the last meeting really wanted to be as close to 5%. So we worked hard to get to the 5%, and the budget is coming in at $22,711,590, which is a 5.24% increase. Next slide. So that's the expenditures. That's everything you're voting in the articles is the expenditure amount. How much can the district expend? So on the other side is the revenue. So we need the funds in order to pay for the expenditures. So the adjustments here was the fund balance. And so we looked at fund balance again. We had already put in $400,000 as a marker, and we added $129,900. So we have a total of other revenue resources before taxes, before property taxes, of $798,900. Then we receive a state allocation of $11,383,013 from the state. And in order to receive those state funds, there are required local property taxes of $6,281,940. And then when you take the difference between the total of the budget minus the state allocation, the other revenue sources, the required local allocation, there's additional local allocation of $4,247,736. So that balances it. So how does this impact? So we wanted to give you an update on that. So next slide, yep. So, and all of you got this in your flyer as well. So you can see the difference between the first proposed budget and this proposed additional local taxes. So we reduced it by 665. The budget was reduced by 665,900, which reduced the additional local taxes by 795,890. And then you can see that the work that the board did has reduced local taxes by 15%, close to 16%, and the impact on the assessed values of homes in the 3 towns have been reduced by 54% in Litchfield, 55% in Sabattis, and 60% in Wales. So I just want to give you an overview of the impact of the reductions. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that overview. Before we begin our articles, I'll just go over a couple of things. So I'm going to read an article. I'm going to look for somebody to make a motion, and it can be what I just read or it can be something different. I'm going to look for a second. And then I'm going to ask for discussion. And at that point, discussion begins. We're looking for discussions such as questions. And if you, once we've done that and I feel that we've exhausted that and there's no more discussion, we'll move on to a vote. If you feel the discussion's going on too long and you want to end debate, you can do what's called moving the previous question, which would end debate. However, that requires a 2/3 vote of those present and voting because, cutting off somebody's right to speak is a higher threshold. We will go through the cost centers article by article. I think we're ready to begin. It is difficult to hear. I have a fan. I'm not complaining about the fan, but I'm going to do my best to hear everybody, but if you need to speak, please go to the microphone and be recognized. State your name and the town you're from so that we can have a clear record of what transpired. Just as a reminder, Articles 12 and 14 will be done by a tally count. Article 13 by state law will be a written ballot. And if you decide you wanted to have a written ballot, there is a process for that. You can request that, and we'll take a vote if there's going to be a written ballot. So we will begin with Article 1. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for regular instruction. School Board recommends $7,536,361. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Yes. I will. So the items in red that are listed was reduced Carrie Ricker specialist positions, PE, music and art, reduced field trip fees, reduced kindergarten ed tech, and reduced PD travel, workers' comp premiums, and summer lump sum. That is what is highlighted in red. Does that answer your question? Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 2, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for special education. School Board recommends $4,978,000. $1,561. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Questions or discussion? I see somebody coming to the mic.
Scott Weeks, Litchfield. I'm just looking for some clarification. So I'm going on the paper that we got in the mail. So the last recommended was 23,377. Current is 22,711 for a difference of 665.90, correct? But up at the top line says increased use of fund balance to offset tax increase went from 400,000 to 529,900. Where is that 529,000? Is it blended in a little bit in each category, or I'd just like a little clarification on that if we could, please.
All right, I'm going to ask the superintendent if she could answer that, and if you could briefly recap what the question was
Okay.
for those who didn't
So-
hear the full question.
Yes, thank you for that question, because it is confusing. So in the expenditures, that was the reduction, the 606,000. So he asked, you raise the fund balance, how does that reflected in the expenditures? So that's two different things. There's one bucket over here, the expenditures. So they reduced the expenditures to a 5% increase, 5.24% increase. Then over here, for revenue, we added 129,900 in fund balance. That directly impacts not needing as much additional funds for taxes. That's the difference. So one is reducing the expenditures, and then two, we increased the revenue, which impacted lowering the taxes. So the revenue lowers your taxes. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
He's coming back. Okay.
Do you have handy by chance how much of that dollar amount when it got applied to each category?
What amount to each
On
category?
the revenue side.
It's not
Unless I'm
applied
being-
because
Unless I'm being,
that's expenditures.
I understand.
Right, so it wouldn't be applied to expenditures. It's overall, how much was the total budget? Then we reduced the state funds, we reduced the, go back to, you want to go back to that slide I showed?
No,
Okay,
it'll probably click with me in another half hour or so, but
okay. Yeah, it's a different bucket.
All right, any further questions or discussion? We're going to get you a mic.
We might be better off saying anything we take from the revenue side is what we don't have to raise in taxes. It's not that it goes into each individual account. It means we don't have to raise that money, right, Katie? Across the board.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments on Article 2? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 3, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for career and technical education. School Board recommends $0. Motion, please. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? See, yes, sir.
This may not be pertinent to the question, but I'm curious as to, per the last article, it appears that there's an unexpended fund balance that the RSU 4 has. And up until right now, I didn't realize that there was an unexpended fund balance that the RSU 4 had. They had to process every dollar that they wanted to spend and have it voted on by the people, and they didn't have an unexpended fund balance. Could that be explained to me, please?
Katie, I would just briefly defer if you could briefly touch upon the fund balance, if that is a quick explanation.
Be nice, Gary. Okay, so, so I'll try to make it clear. So every year, the fund, as you said, we get to the end of the school year, and those funds that have not been expended go into a fund balance that's undesignated. When the board applies it as revenue, it's designating a certain amount. So like this year's, in June, so that last year, FY '24, the fund balance applied was 400,000. So that's what we used. This year, we're applying 529,900 of that fund balance. That still leaves fund balance in there because we have approximately 1.3 million, but then we have to take out the 400 that we put towards reducing taxes for this previous year. We have to have 529,000 to apply for this year, this budget year. And then once you start applying it, you got to make sure you have enough the following year, because if we don't have enough, it will raise taxes because we didn't have enough fund balance. So you have to, it's a balancing act.
A real brief follow-up.
So you have this unexpended fund balance, and if you don't have a balance, then you have a opportunity to what? You have to borrow money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you mean if there was a big emergency and suddenly we had to
So-
replace a boiler or something? Yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is the school board, not you, but the school board has come to the conclusion that not borrowing money is a smart move.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on career and technical education? The motion was for $0. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of $0? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 4, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for other instruction. School board recommends $529,832. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Robert English, Wales. So during the school board meetings, we had a couple of directors who recommended that we remove all stipends and use volunteers for coaches. That was not done in this final budget. Perhaps an explanation of why that suggestion, I think Scott brought it up several times, Laura mentioned it as well, what impact that would have had and why it wasn't included in the budget.
All right. Katie Grondin, do you want to answer that?
Well, I think a simple answer is we really looked at stipends hard, and there are some reductions in some of the stipends, and then the others, we had to weigh out wanting to make sure our students had opportunities.
All right. Next question.
Jen Waterman, Sabatis. So could you please clarify then what the final decision was about Oak Hill Middle School B teams?
Yes, so, and Brian can, Daniels and I reviewed it. So the evening of our going through to make sure we met the 5.24% reduction, Brian went through his lines again. We were looking at every single department. Where can
so
we
what
reduce?
was cut?
So the B team, which is considered the JV teams at the middle school, were cut, which is $12,000. 6 stipends we estimate at $2,000 apiece, And so they will still have JV teams. And as Brian explained to me, is there'll be A teams for the 7th and 8th graders. If they don't have enough players, then they would open it up to 6th graders. And because it's a no-cut sports, so that's how it would work. And then he was also going to talk to the rec department about what the numbers were.
I would entertain a motion to add that $12,000 back in for B team sports, and here's why. Yes, I work at the middle school, but I'm also going to tell you that rec sports does not support children beyond 6th grade. And I have seen the numbers that come through our middle school programs. The teams are huge. And when you break that down, it's not a positive experience for children. Sports are the carrot that gets kids to actually come to school to succeed. And I am not in favor of nickel and diming our kids. I think $12,000 is something that we could pretty easily put back in to support the number of students that we have in middle school that really need to be involved in athletics.
I want to clarify, Mrs. Waterman, before you leave, can you come back to the podium? I wasn't sure if you were making an amendment
Yes.
to add $12,000.
Add $12,000 back.
All right, so your amendment is to bring that amount to $541,832. Please check my math. Is there a second to the amendment? It has been seconded. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions or discussion?
Hi, guys. I'll raise this up a little bit. So, I look at this and I see a cop-out. I see an easy way to cut some funds when there's fundage standing at that door right back there. Yet again. So we talked about this, and obviously people choose to dig in their heels. Nobody here is violent. Nobody in the history of these RSU4 budget meetings has become violent. There's been some words, yeah, but we choose to double down. I would also invite anybody here who wonders where our money goes to go take a look at the dumpster sitting right behind this gymnasium right now.
All right, Mr. Raymond, can I just ask if your question is in regards to other instruction, the amendment, or the motion on the floor? Can you try to bring it to that discussion?
I would honestly like to amend this to the original proposed 2025 budget. Bring back the original $58,000. If we can do without it for workers' comp premiums and a few of the other things in there, great. But to cut it out of sports is, no. We got other ways we can reduce.
All right.
That dumpster is one of them.
I need clarification if you're looking to make an amendment to the amendment.
Do we have the original 2025 proposed budget amount?
Yes. So just for clarification, you want to bring back everything that was in red?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just
Yes.
clarifying.
Yes.
So the last recommended other instruction was 588,361. I'm just looking at you to make sure I'm on the right path here.
Is that your
Right here.
amendment to the amendment?
As soon as we confirm the
Confirming
amount,
it,
that
yes.
is my
Yeah.
amendment.
So he's proposing to go to the 588,361.
I have kids in this RSU. I've had kids for many years. I volunteer. This isn't where we cut.
All right, I guess so your amendment to the amendment for Article 4 is 588,361. Is there a second? We have a second. Any discussion? Yes, sir. We're going to vote. There will be no more amendments to the amendments. We're going to vote. Okay. So the amendment to the amendment amount is $588,361. It was duly seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment at $588,361, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? I counted 35 in the affirmative, 9 in the negative. That amendment to the amendment passes and becomes the amendment. Any questions or discussion? All right, at this time, we'll be voting on the amendment, and that amount is $588,361. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries and becomes a main motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. The main motion for Article 4 is $588,361. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. All right, Article 5. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for student and staff support. School Board recommends $2,588,093. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Jim Whalen from Sabatis. I believe this is the right area to put it in, but I would like to add back professional development for teachers. As a husband of a former teacher who retired, I think it's very important that the teachers have professional training throughout the year, and I think this would be a major mistake to remove this.
Do you have a dollar amount?
15,000.
Bear with me. If my math is correct, your amendment is $2,603,093. I got a thumbs up. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries and becomes a main motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, the main motion on Article 5 is $2,603,093. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 6. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for system administration. School board recommends $744,458. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Can you come to the mic?
Hi, Lana from Wales. I just cannot see. I was going to ask, can you just read off where the money going, what's going to be coming
What the
out?
reduction is, or the entire slide?
Yeah, like pluses, minuses. I cannot see nothing from there. So
All right. It looks, I think the reduced amount was reduced PD travel, with reduced workers' comp premiums. I think they went with less postage meters, and they reduced their legal fees line. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote on Article 6. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 7. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for school administration. The school board recommends $1,187,286. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? The chair's in doubt. I'm going to need to do a count. All right, so we're going to do the all those in favor one more time. The motion is for $1,187,286. All those in favor? Those opposed? There was 27 in the affirmative, 23 in the negative. The motion carries. You object? All right. Then I will ask, are you requesting a secret ballot, or would you like to do
I
the...
am requesting a secret ballot on the article.
All right. A secret ballot requires a 10% of those present to vote in favor of a secret ballot. All those in favor of moving to a secret ballot on this article, please raise your paddle. He has challenged my count. He has challenged the count. So therefore, we are going to go back. He challenged the count. He challenged the count that he was in doubt that that was the outcome. Are you... All right, we will be at ease for just a moment. The question before was the challenge of a vote by the show of hands. It was done immediately after the vote. The chair would conclude that the person who made that motion gathered support of more than 6 other members, and challenged for a more certain voting method. So the chair will order a written ballot on Article 7. What color will we be voting with? We'll be voting with mint. So on Article 7, because that ballot was challenged, we will be voting by written ballot. So please bring your paddle to get your ballot and cast your ballot. The amount was for 1,187,286. We're only on 7, buddy. Only on 7. Yeah, but the later ones are the additional vote. It's called additional local funds. So that's the biggest one. That will garner the most discussion. I get to give up. My vote's in. Does anybody need assistance with voting? Has everyone voted who wishes? I will now declare the ballot box closed and we will begin counting. I'm going to find you a table. Hey, Paul. That way they can dump the ballots on the table. We're going to let you use this table for at least the next vote. Are we still at 60? All right. I have the results of Article 7. We have 64 voters potentially have checked in, or have checked in. 31 yes, 25 no. The motion passes. All right, we're going to move on to Article number 8. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for transportation and buses. School board recommends $1,356,011. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Hi guys. So this is the one reason that I'm actually here today. Imagine my surprise when we're struggling to get our budget passed because it's too expensive. And I hear that we own a brand new Ford F-250. Pretty expensive truck. Then imagine my surprise when I hear that we bought that truck because we have a trailer that occasionally gets towed. Why does the school board, why does a school system require a trailer? And why would that trailer require a truck at $60,000? I'm just ballparking that one because it's a F-250. We can't afford what we've got, and we keep adding to.
All right.
Do we have a reason for that truck?
The question is about the truck. I don't believe this is the cost center, but if you want to answer it now, okay.
So I understand the concern around purchasing the truck. So it's a needed vehicle for the district to transport various things. I'll give you an example that I used my own truck when we had a flooding at the science wing and needed to get storage bins on site. We used my truck, and we used the director of operations truck. There are many times, as a matter of fact, since purchasing that truck, it has been used almost daily. So it's an important vehicle because we shouldn't be using our employees' vehicles to transport, to move heavy items, that if we have an item that needs to go to a repair shop, instead of paying for a repair shop to come pick it up, we can bring it to them. So there's many reasons why it was purchased. And it was purchased looking through our expenditure lines from last year's budget in June, knowing that what are high priorities in the expenditures, and things had to be purchased by June 30th, or work had to be completed by June 30th.
Okay, I get all that, but did anybody ever call Sabattis Public Works, Wales Public Works, Litchfield Public Works? Look for out-of-the-box ways to try to save a couple of bucks instead of trying to cut $12,000 from our student athletes. And again, I'll point to the dumpster sitting in the backyard. Okay, I guarantee you I go out there and I pull 20 perfectly good desks out of that dumpster, and we did that because we wanted chairs that pull away from a table. I'm assuming that's the reason, because that's all I can think of to throw away perfectly good desks. Unless I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. Okay? We are not looking for ways to save money that really matters. $10,000 there, $1,000 there. It adds up. And our kids don't suffer because of it. That's all I came here to say. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Parker, do you have a question? Again, we're on transportation and buses.
Yes, I understand that. That's my comment. My comment is that because all equipment costs the amount of money that it does now, that it makes sense for this board, not the administration, to set forth a plan that replaces equipment in a timely fashion so that it doesn't become equipment that needs super maintenance and becomes a hazard to the children that are riding on these buses. And you may think I'm super conservative, and I am, but the reason that I am is because it makes sense to buy equipment that's not going to fall apart in the winter. And if you don't believe me, look at the Litchfield budget. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or discussion on transportation and buses? Seeing none, the motion on the floor was for $1,356,011. Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed, that motion carries. Article 9, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for facilities maintenance. School Board recommends $3,357,332. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? We'll do Mr. English first and then Mr. Woods next.
Robert English, Wales. I'd like to amend the motion amount to $3,331,932.
Can you repeat that number, please?
Yes, $3,331,932.
Is there a second to that amendment? Is there? It's been seconded. Okay.
So if I may, I'll explain why that amount is. It's an amount of $90,500. It's the amount in the capital improvement plan for the next year for the two schools in Litchfield. And I bring this up for this fact. We have this elephant that's been in the room for 10 years. It keeps coming up. Certain Litchfield residents and I think they're in the minority, but I don't know, keep saying that they're going to withdraw from the union. And right now there's a lot of talk about that. I don't believe that the residents of Wales, where I live, or even those in Sabattis, should pay to make capital improvements to 2 buildings that our students may not be able to use in a couple of years. And that's the amount that's in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 25 for those 2 schools. The secondary reason for bringing it up is to encourage a number of people in Litchfield to take out the petition to withdraw, and then the selectmen have to schedule a public hearing and a vote on that particular deal. And if it passes, then we know where this future is. If it doesn't pass, then we can take that elephant off our back and we can move on and carry on. Hopefully it would fail, but I believe the RSU is much stronger with all 3 towns, and I would hope it would stay that way. But I've heard it so many times when I sat up there over the years, and it needs to be put to bed. So even if the people that signed the petition are against it, they can sign a petition to do it, have the vote, and defeat the vote to withdraw, and then the thing goes to bed. If it passes, then the school board would know how to continue as far as reconsideration, reconfigurations, expenditures, and et cetera, looking to the future.
All right, any further discussion?
So I just, Scott Fife, Wales. This would be a good opportunity, $9,500 reduction to offset the addition we put in on Article 4. Just wanted to point that out.
All right. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Randy, we also need clarification on the number again. We want to make sure we have
All
the
right.
correct number.
The amendment on the floor is for $3,331,932. And that
Thank
has
you.
been seconded. Yes, sir.
Mr. English? Mr. English, you're nodding on the number?
No, I'm not. I thought I had it right.
Okay. I just asked if Mr. English was satisfied with the number that came out on his amendment. And he's checking his figures to see. Okay.
You asked if he was satisfied with the number?
Apparently, he was shaking his head and doing math in his lap as the number that was read from the board. And I was just asking him if that was the number that he actually moved.
All right. So I will clarify with Mr. English. Was your amendment $3,331,932?
Yes, sir, that's the amount I mentioned. I want to confirm if that's what I really wanted, but that's what I meant.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. My name is Tom Wood. I'm from Litchfield. The question of operations and maintenance has been an ongoing issue for years and years. And RSU4 and the voters have chosen to kick the can down the road for as long as RSU4 has been RSU4. I have a friend and neighbor who was chief of police in Sabattis 30 years ago, where the discussions were, oh, we have to close Sabattis primary because it's outdated, blah, 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 blah. And it's never happened. Yet, over the life of RSU4, we've invested what was necessary just to keep the lights on and the children safe. So, my view of what the board's responsibility is to ensure that the assets and resources of the school are not allowed to deteriorate over some fit of pique on the part of a former board member. This same gentleman
sat at that table right there during a discussion about the allocation of the local additional tax, and on a hot mic said, well, let's just put it all on property and see how they like that, which is indicative of an attitude with the school board. The school board has no place telling a community what it can and can't do or when it can do it.
All right. Please direct your
Okay.
comments to the moderator.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, my question is, earlier this year, there was a possible alternative to close Sabattis Primary that had some level of savings associated. My memory serves me someplace between $300,000 and $500,000. Why is that option off the table now, and what impact would it have if we were back on the table?
All right. That was a question. I would defer to the superintendent.
So, as you know, the board at the time did not support that. And so, as we got closer to the end of the school year, the timing is just not right, because if we have to pack the school and move it, we've got to pay all the employees. So you won't see the savings that we predicted. So we did not calculate how much that would be for them to pack, then go over, unload. A lot of other buildings, remember, pre-K was moving up to Kerry Ricker, so there's a lot of moving pieces, and the timing now of bringing people in the summer is going to cost more money. So the savings will not be seen if we had done it during the school year.
All right. Does that answer your question?
I will
All
add.
right. All right. Any further questions or discussion? Mr. English first, and then Carol Spencer next.
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, I'm sorry. I did have a wrong number, and I think the only way to correct that would be an amendment to the amendment. To take $90,500 from the line, I believe, leaves $3,266,832. My fault from just trying to do it on the back of the napkin.
All right. I
And
guess
I think
rather
the business
than
manager can.
right before you do that, would the person who made the second be willing to withdraw the second?
$3,266,832. That should be $90,500 less than.
Are you willing to withdraw the second? Okay, so it looks like you will be making an amendment to the amendment.
I make an amendment to the amendment in the amount of $3,266,832, and it's for the purposes I stated before.
Is there a second? It has been seconded. All right, Carol.
Carol from Sabattis. I have a question. When it shows there's all these different reductions, reduced workers' comp premiums, and there was some other things like that, how come now, since we want a reduction, it can be reduced? Was it inflated before? Do you not have the same amount of employees? I don't understand why we have a reduction we can do where it was in there higher. Or even last time with the heating fuel, oh, we can take 10,000 out. Well, if you already have the numbers, why are we taking, it's okay to take 10,000 out now. I don't understand the budget. I don't understand how that works where you inflate this and now you can go down. Are you overestimating or what are you doing?
Sure. Specifically to the workers' compensation, it's a timing issue. So the board generates for us our mod rate, which is basically a comparison of our usage against our premium that we pay in. When that mod rate comes out, then we can have a better estimate of what our premium will be for the following year. And we've done really well with our workers' compensation. Our employees are safe at work, which is great compared to other districts. So our mod rate is very low, which has allowed us to reduce that premium once that mod rate was sent to us from the workers' comp board.
I think we have a follow-up on that.
The same thing. So how come that, when did that come out? When did that stat come out? Because now we're saying, hey, we want this reduced, and now you can reduce it. Why wasn't it there in the beginning?
I'd have to check the communication to get the exact date for you, but it's very late spring is when they publish that mod rate.
All right, so do you have a follow-up? Did you get a chance to answer the?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any further questions or discussion on facilities and maintenance? Just a second, we have somebody coming to the mic and I'll get you next.
Hi, Lana Hall from Wales again. So facility maintenance and stuff, I know we talked about moving schools around and things like that, and I remember bringing to the school board the idea of actually getting rid of potential central office, because you, Katie, I think said, how many people in central office? How many people are working in the central office?
12.
12. So I was just thinking, since you had an idea of moving whole school full of teachers and kids to a different school, why not try to get rid of that facility maintenance and things like that, and maybe put those 12 people in a school where you're going to put the whole kids, whole school full of kids. So is that a possibility still to potentially add that as a cut in maintenance? And how much would it be? Thank you.
Okay, so yes, absolutely considered that, because we heard that feedback. And so, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong when I start that. So to vacate would be a $41,000 savings, for that's how much it costs to run central office. The issue is, in order for us to go into a building, there's considerations, right? In it's confidentiality, so there needs to be certain people in offices. There needs to be an entrance area for the public to enter. There's needs of storage, bathroom facilities. So there are things that have to be considered. So when we talked about a possible move, that you would not have the savings, because you have to build offices, you have to arrange things. So it's not something that couldn't be considered at a later point. The other thing is, because there's so many moving parts, depending on which schools are occupied, if there's a closure of a school or vacance of a school, then you've given up this space, so now you have to have a bigger space because you're now doing central office. So it was absolutely considered.
All right, Mr. Parker.
So we've had a lot of discussion, and we have a couple of amendments, and I would appreciate the moderator explaining what we're going to vote on when we vote, and whether or not it's going to completely change Article 9, and we're going to say, yes, that's what we're going to decide, that those numbers are what we're going to vote on, because I'm not comfortable with that. And if I have to make another amendment to the amendment, which shouldn't happen because we already have 2 amendments to the amendment, it's unacceptable. Thank you.
Right. All right, so we don't take any more amendments to the amendment. That's where it stops. We will vote. We will dispose of it. Once that's been voted on, we can then do an amendment to the amendment if that's appropriate. But I will clarify where we're at before we start voting. We're still on discussion stage of Article 9. Is there any further discussion? All right, so let me recap where we're at. Article 9 was facilities maintenance. The amendment to the amendment is $3,266,832. If it passes, it then becomes the amendment. If it fails, we will move on to the original amendment, which was $3,331,932. Again, we haven't got back to the main motion, which the main motion was $3,357,332. So the first vote, we have a question.
Hi, Esther from Litchfield. And it is kind of confusing when you're listening to these different things that come up. Does that mean that if this amendment passes, then Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier won't get any maintenance? Is that?
All right, so you're asking a question about the amendment. The amendment, if it passes, would Carrie Ricker and Libby Tozier not get the maintenance?
Right. So what kind of capital improvements would not happen just because we're Litchfield?
All right, so I'm going to defer that question to either the person who made the motion or somebody from the school board, and then we can still have discussion. Mr. Parker. Okay. Mr. English, did you want to answer the question since you made the amendment to the amendment, or would you rather I defer to the board?
You can look it up. It's in the budget presentations. So it's in the capital improvement plan under this article that was published. So they can give you the exact numbers and what the items are for.
So I would like to have Jonathan Varney speak to it because that was the capital improvement plan. He needs to speak to what this reduction would do to those plans that were in the maintenance budget. Because as you can see, we already, yeah, so do you want to do that, Jonathan? I'm looking to see. Because there already was a reduction to Carrie Ricker supplies, equipment, and repair lines.
Good evening, John Varney, Operation Director. To answer the question in regards to the capital improvement funds, or to your question exactly, not all maintenance at the Litchfield schools would be reduced entirely. What the gentleman here is proposing is to reduce the budget, or cost center 9 as a whole, and he's referring. Yep, sorry, is that better? Referring specifically to a capital improvement, a 5-year capital improvement plan that I put out. I had mentioned in the budget meeting, and I'm sorry if that was confusing, that those numbers weren't all inclusively in the budget currently and the budget's coming forward. It was more a placeholder for some things that we knew were coming through. A few things that were within the 90,000 or roughly 90,000 that Mr. English is proposing to cut. The door replacements were already a large chunk of that. Something that would be affected, though, that is in that 5-year plan, that is in this current budget, is some matching funds for a grant that I'm trying to get with the Department of Justice to make our schools safer in regards to access controls. If we do eliminate the 90,000, that likely wouldn't be a project we could sustain, at least in the schools that he's referring to cutting from. So I hope that answers your question.
I think that makes sense. I guess what I'm wrestling with is my perception is that it further divides the RSU, and we want unity between the 3 towns instead of being ostracized or less taken care of just because somebody came up with an idea that might work. But we haven't gone down that road yet, so I would encourage unity amongst the 3 towns instead of ostracizing or setting Litchfield apart. Thank you.
Mr. Parker, I think, was next.
So the point is that to say, to come before this floor and say that we're going to cut $90,000 out of Litchfield's maintenance agreement is inappropriate, only because the only people that can decide that, Mr. Moderator, is the school board. And they haven't made that decision. And hopefully, the school board, in their ultimate wisdom, will come to the conclusion that maintenance is the ultimate goal to keep our kids in an environment that keeps them healthy. And to say that maintenance is the lowest thing on the totem pole, no matter where it is, Sabattis, Oak Hill, or Litchfield, doesn't really justify saying, well, let's cut that because it's going to Litchfield. Well, that's not up to us. This board, this community, to decide. We're here to pass a budget that we really know almost nothing about. And the people that do know about it, theoretically, are those people sitting in front of us right now. Hopefully, they will come to the conclusion that's proper and decisive. And whether or not something happens in the future that changes that doesn't make any difference on maintenance and the responsibility of the three towns to make sure that our children are in a healthy environment. Doesn't matter. Everything changes. Nobody likes it. Doesn't matter. And furthermore, Mr. Moderator, I believe that because we have an opportunity to save a little bit of money by closing a facility in Sabattis that isn't really that functional, and there's ample spaces in the other towns to provide space for the children that occupy those facilities, then possibly it might be a good idea to do that, which result in maybe another $200,000 or $500,000 savings over the $795,000 savings that's been proposed by this board. And I would hope that when we get down to Article 13, that a proposal is made to cut some extra funds from the budget and forget about this proposal on maintenance of buildings. That seems to be the major refraction of whatever happens is, well, let's just cut maintenance. Well, you know what? If you keep on deferring maintenance, buildings fall down. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
All right.
Matt Early from Wales. I apologize if I'm incorrect, but just point of clarification. We're here to, the reason for being here tonight is to make adjustments to numbers, but what or where that cut is made or how that cut is made or how that money is added in is not decided here. Just so there's no confusion about, you know, what's being decided on. It's just a number figure, not where that is happening, other than inside the article.
Yeah, yes, I would confer with that any money, any reductions within the cost centers must be reduced from the cost centers, just to clarify. Correct? Yeah. All right, any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Jim Whalen from Sabattis. I just want to make a comment because different people are saying we should maintain the schools so they're safe for the school, for the kids. But what happened last year's budget, they removed, I may be wrong on the amount, but I think it was $200,000 from maintenance. This has happened so many years. That is why Libby Tozier and Sabattis Primary is in such disrepair, because that's where the cuts are always made and nothing can be repaired. So now we've got six schools, S-I-C-K, and you know, and now they don't want to cut the maintenance program. Well, they should have thought of that years ago, every year when the maintenance budget has been cut.
All right, any further discussion on maintenance? Mr. English first.
All right, I don't want to drag this out. So my point was not to hurt maintenance. I've sat on that board for 28 years. I never once went and proposed that we cut maintenance. I voted against those every time. It was this body here that over the last several years have been the ones that have cut the maintenance line. I do not want to cut maintenance. I want maintenance to be maintained. My motion is primarily to ring the bell. Something has to happen so that this board up here knows what the future is going to look like for the RSU. Is it going to be 3 towns or 2 towns? Because they're going to make a lot of decisions. It's going to make a lot of money, like closing Sabatis Primary, and then all of a sudden we don't have Libby Tozier. You know, those are really heady decisions that they're going to have to do. And you're right. My proposal was because of those 2 numbers in the capital. But I fully understand that the board, working with the administration, are going to determine how to spend the dollars that this group and then the referendum, the voters give them. So that's their responsibility. But on every other article where people have talked about cutting the budget or cutting something or adding it in, they've talked about particular things. And they should know that while they put in particular things, that doesn't mean that that's where the board has to go and add or subtract. Thank you.
I'm just going to remind everybody, the amendment to the amendment was a dollar amount, and there was a reference to where that could be reduced. That doesn't mean the board will use that reference as a dollar amount, just to clarify.
Laura Clifford from Sabatis. I'd like to move the question.
There is a motion to move the previous question on the amendment to the amendment. Requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of moving to the previous question and ending discussion at this time, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. I'm going to recap where we are before we begin voting. The amendment to the amendment is a dollar amount on Article 9 in the amount of $3,266,832, which I believe is a $90,500 reduction. We will be voting with what color? No, I'm sorry, we will not be voting by secret ballot. We will be voting. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion fails. We will now be discussing the amendment, which was $3,331,932. Discussion.
Laura from Sabatis. I'd like to make a motion to move the question.
There is a motion to move the question, ending discussion, and moving right to the vote. All those in favor of moving the previous question, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. The amended amount is $3,331,932. All those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? The amendment fails. The main motion is $3,357,332. Any discussion?
Laura from Sabatis. I'd like to move the question, make a motion to move the question.
There's a motion to move the question, which would end discussion and move immediately to the vote. All those in favor of ending discussion, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. The motion on the floor is $3,357,332. All those in favor, please raise your paddle. All those opposed? That motion carries. Article 10. To see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for debt service and other commitments. School board recommends $433,656. Motion, please. It has been moved. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. Article 11, to see what sum the RSU will be authorized to expend for all other expenditures. School board recommends $0. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion carries. Article 12, to see what sum the RSU will appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and to see what sum the RSU will raise and assess as each municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20A, Section 15688. Total approved by municipality: Town of Litchfield, $5,841,409.64. Town of Litchfield to be raised by municipality, $2,846,489.66. Town of Sabattis, total $8,751,202.76. Town of Sabattis raised by municipality $2,496,953.66. Town of Wales, $3,072,340.23. Town of Wales raised by municipality $938,495.34. Total approved $17,664,952.63. Total to be raised by the combined municipalities $6,281,938.66. Motion, please. Yeah. Just to clarify, this is the one you want to vote for. This is the one that guarantees the state match. Motion, please. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any questions or discussion? All right. I need to get a hand count on this, so if there's no discussion and we move to the vote, would you please raise your paddles and keep them raised so I can get a good count? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your paddle. All right, all those opposed? All right. I counted 54 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. That motion carries. Article 13. Before I read it, I'm going to right. So I'm going to read the Article 13. I'm going to remind everybody that Article 13 will be a written ballot, regardless. I'm also going to mention that there have been some adjustments made thus far, and that number may need to be adjusted. And if it's the first one, it's a main motion. If it's not the first one, it could be an amendment. So I'm going to read Article 13 as it is written. To see what sum the RSU will raise and appropriate in additional local funds, recommend $4,247,736.03, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $4,247,736.03, as required to fund the budget recommended by the school board. The school board recommends $4,247,736.03, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $4,247,736.03 due to inequities in the EPS funding formula, including but not limited to the regional labor market adjustment factor, student-teacher ratios, extra and co-curricular programs, and administrative costs. Motion, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we change the amount to $4 million.
I want to clarify that you're making a main motion. You're the first one recognized. So what is the number you would like to move?
I'd like to make it $4,321,265.03.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded in the amount of $4,321,265.03. Discussion. All right. Any other discussion? Okay. Yep. Come on up.
So I would like to understand what you just, give me that number again, please.
I will read it to you. $4,321,265.03.
3 cents. Okay, so that's an amendment to.
That is a main motion.
To the main motion.
No, that is the main motion.
That's the main motion now.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make an amendment to the main motion to read $4,121,265.03. That would save the 3 towns $200,000 as designated by the school board. Thank you.
All right, so there is an amendment for $4,121,265.03. Is there a second? It has been seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Carol from Sabatis. I know I'm doing all this. I don't understand why the $4 million is exceeding. Can you explain what that means? Why we need more than what? I don't understand why we need the extra $4 million. I don't understand that. Maybe you can explain how that works.
Sure. The superintendent would like to take that?
Yeah. So it's a big formula. And so it's based on, they give you a certain percentage towards salaries. They do, for economically disadvantaged, you get certain categories, and it all totals up, special education costs, some transportation costs, and then it comes to a number, and then it does the required, which you saw, the required to get the state. And so anything above that, so things like co-curricular, extracurricular, administrative costs that aren't included in the formula. So things outside. It was built to be it's applied to all the districts. So it's to be fair in the sense of everybody's going to get the same amount for this, which is a base model. Anything you go above and beyond that is additional local. So they don't expect you, they wouldn't expect districts to stay within that number because of the high costs and so forth.
Any other questions or discussion?
The state.
Mr. Parker?
I'm really not trying to be negative, and I do understand that we want the best for our children. But to insinuate that the state has decided that we really don't need $4 million more to take care of our children in education says something for what our government in this state has decided to do for our children. That being said, $4 million is an extremely amount of money. And I don't think $200,000 is an excessive amount to take out of that to save the 3 towns a few mills in their tax dollars. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or discussion?
Bob English, Wales. The state funding formula is kind of wacky. It's hard. But just to go and mention some of the things that we are paying for out of additional that the state doesn't pay for. We have 15 more teachers than the state allows us to have. We have 4 more guidance personnel than the state allows us to have. We have 2.5 more health professionals than the state allows. We have 3.7 ed techs more than the state allows. And we have 2 additional administrators than the state puts in the formula. So that's what our extra money is going for. We're going for people in the classrooms that are teaching every day our students. And to take out $200,000 will be 2 senior staff people, but since you can't cut from the top because of our union contracts, that will probably be 3.5 to 4 new teachers to come up with $200,000. So that would increase our classroom sizes, which right now are 15 to 1 is the state, and we're running a 17 to 1 in the 1 to 5. So we're running a little bit larger class size than the state wants already. We cut those junior teachers, our class sizes will go up. So that's why it's the extra amount. They don't fund everything, but we are getting 62% of the EPS formula. So we are a high receiver. Remember, the state always talked about 55% of your costs. We are getting 62% of what they figure.
Doug Bumpus, Litchfield. I'm on the school committee. I'm also the chair of the Finance and Facilities Committee, subcommittee that dealing with the school board. And I just didn't want to miss my chance. I should have spoke up sooner on the facilities section. But as far as costs looking into the future, there is a subcommittee that's that's open to the public and has public membership on it currently, or did. And we're going to be discussing about closing. So if you're very interested in trying to prepare for next year's budget, I want to just throw a plug out there to please come to these facilities and finance subcommittee meetings and maybe participate in them or discuss those if you really think that closing the schools, because it's a very complicated process and it's not as simple as we're just going to go in, turn all the lights off and go home. We can't do that. So I just feel like that's something that should be discussed because there is potential savings in the future. And I think that instead of waiting until next year and having everybody be all up about that, it would be good for you to participate or be there present and hear the process and be involved and have your voice heard in that process, as far as closing central office maybe, or SPS, or Libby Tozier, or how those are going to be affected if you want to be heard. I think that I didn't want to miss a chance to plug that. It doesn't really do too much with the current discussion, but it does in a way. You know.
All right. I'm going to recognize Mr. Parker next, then Laura, then Mrs. Waterman.
My comment is that since we're making comments and speculations, is that my motion was not to direct the school board in where to get the $200,000, as Mr. English supposes to say.
Please keep your comments.
Mr. Moderator. And, well, okay. Anyway, my motion was to reduce the local funded appropriation by $200,000, not to direct the school board on how to come up with those funds. And should they come up with more than that, that wouldn't be detrimental to my thought process. That being said, I would hope that the school board takes it upon themselves to think about the process that they undertake, and I'm sure they have, because I was on the school board for 9 years, so I understand the process. But it's important that don't take direction generally given. Just think about it. Thank you.
All right. Laura Clifford.
Just a clarification. So the current amendment on the floor is?
The amendment on the floor is $4,121,265.03.
And can you clarify if that's by placket or by written?
That will be by written.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to move the question.
There's a motion to move the question, which would end discussion and moved immediately to a vote on the amended amount. All those in favor of ending discussion, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. We will be voting on the amended amount. The amount is $4,121,265.03. We will be voting with a pink ballot. Please take your paddles to your town clerk, get your ballots, cast your ballots, and we'll be back shortly. Does anybody need assistance with voting? Has everybody voted who wishes? Anybody still running? All right, I declare the ballot box closed and we'll begin counting. All right, I have the results for the amendment on Article 13. There was 52 ballots cast, 25 yes, 27 no. The amendment fails. All right, so now we are back to the original motion, which was $4,321,265.03. Discussion, please.
Laura Clifford from Sabatis. I'd like to make a motion to move the question.
There's a motion to move the previous question, which requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of moving the question and moving immediately to vote, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? That motion carries. We will be voting on the main motion of $4,321,265.03 by secret ballot. And we'll be using the goldenrod ballot. We are now voting. Has everyone voted who wishes? Does anybody need assistance with voting? Seeing none, I will declare the ballot box closed and they will begin counting. And just reminder that she is moving this number. She doesn't need to amend. All right, I have the results of the Article 13. There was 30 voted yes, 20 voted no. Article 13 passes. Article 14. To see what sum the RSU will authorize the school board to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024, and ending June 30, 2025, from the RSU's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from pre-kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, local funds for non-state funded school construction, debt services, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes Title 20A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts to support of schools. The school board recommends $22,711,590. Motion, please.
Mr. Moderator, I motion for the number to be $22,785,119.
All right, is there a second? It has been moved and seconded for the amount of $22,785,119. And is there any discussion?
I am only going to state my concern that when we come to vote on this on the 30th, that the people in this room are the ones that felt it important enough to show up and make comments and state their concerns about how our money is being spent. And unfortunately, I would be surprised if this doesn't get deposed again and we start this process all over again. Because unfortunately, at the last select board meeting, I was informed that people don't understand the process. Well, the process has been explained to more than all the people in this town more than once. And I feel concerned that there's only 60 people out of 3 communities that number 10,000 that have decided to come and make their thoughts known. Or maybe they just think, okay, whatever they think's great. Thank you.
All right, I will just recap. Article 14, the motion on the floor was $22,785,119. Any further discussion?
I've been up too many times. So what's that increase now? It was 5 point something percent. What's the new percentage?
$5.6%.
All right, any further questions? Mrs. Waterman?
Yes.
Okay, the question was, is this the accurate amount based on what was changed earlier? And the answer was confirmed yes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. Please, again, I need to do a count on this. So please, all those in favor, please raise your paddles. Those opposed? All right, the count, that motion carries. The count was 33 in the affirmative, 12 in the negative. Is there any further business to come before this? Seeing none, I will entertain, is there a motion to adjourn? It has been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries. This concludes our annual budget meeting. Just to remind everybody, this is part 1 of part 2. Part 2 is go to the polls on Tuesday, July 30th. In your respective town, the hours in Litchfield and Sabattis are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and in Wales, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you all for coming.